trim, but for Group A, you are allowed one or two minor modifications. Modifications began with this, an Evolution Special. The regulations permit a manufacturer to build 500 specials and incorporate those modifications on the racing car, hence the RS 500 Cosworth. Now we have this larger rear wing, the whale tail, two-tier. In the engine, there's a larger turbocharger and larger intercooler, which allows the power to be raised from 200 horsepower to 225. The front spoiler now has a lower chin for aerodynamics and also more ducting to increase the airflow into the coolers. And so we come to the racing model itself. There's now slick racing tyres, racing brakes and very firm racing suspension. In the engine bay, well, there's a lot of heat shielding, there's a lot of this aircraft specification high pressure piping, there's a mechanical fuel pump, and also there's a very well-tuned engine. The same engine, albeit, but now producing 500 horsepower. Finally, and most important in most racing cars, are the sponsors' colour schemes and logos. Here is the car that I won that race back in May with Lawrence Bristow, and in this case it's a Canadian brewer with a very important message. Inside, all the trim is stripped out, the massive rollover cage for safety, the piping laid inside for protection. For the driver, the gear lever. Beside it, the brake balance adjuster, and also an anti-roll bar adjustment which helps the handling whilst driving. The racing seat holding the driver firmly in place and straight ahead the steering wheel. Now what else do we need? Ah, that's better. Now, let's see what it's like.
The main thing about Group A is that it's a compromise formula. Unlike single-seaters or Group C, it's not a car that's designed for racing alone. It's a compromise. It's a road car made into a racing car. With these engines race-tuned, you've got 500 horsepower to hold on the road, but the regulations limit the amount of tyres you're allowed to have, the tyre width. So getting 500 horsepower down onto the road in what's basically a saloon car causes quite a few interesting situations. The suspension is relatively soft. You can't get the torsional rigidity that a racing car provides because the body shell is full of holes. So you have to make do as best you can. Suspension, of course, still very stiff compared with the road car, but there's an awful lot of wheel waving and steering wheel work to be done in a Group A car. Braking is a much longer braking area as well as a racing car. So, all in all, you need a lot more road in a Group A car than perhaps you do in a Packer racer. Tending to understeer into the corners and then snapping to oversteer when the brute power of 500 horsepower is applied. And that was applying a little bit too much, too soon.